Welcome to the Sales Dojo podcast. The podcasts are here to help you address the real issues salespeople face every single day.
So we've got 3 people in the room and 5 posts. Hasn't been everyone in the room for a while, actually. First post is one that you shared, Chris. It's on Instagram.
Hello, check me out here on Insta. Really caught my eye. It's by a scientist professor, Nash, from years ago, who I'm sure is the guy, have you seen the movie Beautiful Mind?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's him, okay? But the real him, not the guy who played the guy in Beautiful Mind.
Russell Crowe. I
yes,
just answered a film question, right?
What's the film?
Oh, my world. Susie wins the podcast today. That's awesome. Yes, Russell Crowe. We're not a movie podcast, I know, but if you haven't seen it, go and give it a watch. Absolutely boss film. So let me read this post out. It says, you're not in control of your decisions. This Nobel Prize winner spent 44 plus years proving. He exposed a hidden pattern that governs human behavior called game theory. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. So it's quite a big post, so I'll go as quick as I can. It says, meet John Nash. In 1950, at age 22, he wrote a 28-page PhD thesis that would change everything. Haven't we all, John? Come on. But there was a problem. Nash was developing schizophrenia, and he barely spoke to anyone. Don't want to give any spoilers for the movie. Yeah, his mathematical discovery became the foundation of predicting human behavior. Nash discovered something called equilibrium. It's the point where no one can improve their situation by changing their strategy if everyone else stays the same. Sounds boring, right? Well, this formula now controls how you shop, what you watch, even who you date. And here's how it works. You approach a traffic light. Red means stop, green means go. Why? Because you know other drivers follow the same rule. Nobody benefits from changing this strategy alone. That's Nash's equilibrium, and it's everywhere. Ever wonder why Coca-Cola and Pepsi cost almost exactly the same price? It's the Nash equilibrium. If Coke drops prices, Pepsi must follow. If Pepsi raises prices, they lose customers. So both of them stay locked at the same price point, unable to move without losing money. But here's where it gets dark. Companies realized they could use Nash's formula to trap you in a bad decision. The weapon, something called the sunk cost fallacy. And once you see how they're using it, you'll be furious. The sunk cost fallacy makes you continue something because you've already invested time, money, or effort, even when quitting would be the far smarter decision. Nash proved this mathematically, and companies turned it into a profit machine. Spotify, for example, free tier, deliberately terrible. 6 skips per hour, ads every 3 songs. Premium, $9.99 a month for relief from artificial pain. The result, 246 million users, 90% are on revenue premium. They're not selling music, they're selling escape from the frustration that they've created. This is called demand through inconvenience. Research shows the more you enjoy the free service, the less likely you are to upgrade. So companies make free versions just annoying enough to push you forward to payment. Brilliant, yes. Ethical, maybe not. Nash himself described the personal cost. I was a PhD program and realized I wasn't happy in this field, but stuck with it due to fear of confronting the sunk cost of 4 to 5 years. Even the guy who discovered it fell victim to this. In his famous discovery, The Prisoner Dilemma, 2 players, 2 choices, cooperate or cheat. Both cooperate, $2. Both cheat, they get no money. One cheats, one cooperates. Cheater gets 3, cooperator loses 1. Rationally, you should always cheat. The result, both lose. And it goes on, sorry, I know it's a really long post, goes on to explain all these things. What's the point of this? Well, I think everybody loses on price when one person drops is a message that all salespeople need to hear. If you start selling on price, everybody loses. Richard Branson's talked about this a massive amount as well. And the sunk cost equation. I'm miserable. I hate this, but I'm 2 years in. Or I've spent a load of money on this and it doesn't work and it's actually harming me, but I've spent a load of money on it, then influences your decision to carry on doing a terrible thing. I just think it's amazing that all this stuff is out there in front of us, this game theory, sunk cost theory everywhere more than ever before, and we're kind of blind to it. We just go online and we do stuff all the time, don't we? And I'd love this idea of salespeople and business owners taking that step back and looking at the socials, at the website, at the pricing structures of what the sales teams do. Other than just basic sales training, what of this stuff is out there that you can easily put on there? Newspapers do it brilliantly. If you look at their pricing structures for online and newspaper, they do all of this stuff. And it's a brilliant movie to go and watch. Rambled on there for ages, so I will let Leon McCowan come in and say, shut up, Chris. We're boring everyone now.
Shut up, Chris. You're boring everybody now. Yeah, so I had a conversation about this with someone the other day who was talking about they're just going to open a gym and they had one price point. And I was like, I think what you need to have is 2 price points. And we used that 3rd price point anchoring as well, where it was like, the cheap one only gets you a little bit of access. The next step up gets you loads of access, but the premium one gets a bit more and it's not that much more expensive. And I always find it fascinating stuff like this. I love the film. I've read loads of stuff about John Forbes Nash Jr., who's absolutely unbelievable and is one of these crazy, and literally crazy, one of these crazy geniuses who just has an amazing mind, but then also toyed or flirted with insanity at times, because I think it was the early 60s, he ended up getting treated for schizophrenia. And then by 70, he's had some treatment that allowed him to go back and do another PhD, which is fascinating. My favorite bit about this actually was probably not that serious. And it was the bit about the prisoner's dilemma. And the reason is this is what the TV show that Jasper Carrott used to do, which was Golden Balls. So this is what that was based on, was this theorem where you give 2 people an amount of money and they could either steal or share, and they would almost always fuck each other over and steal.
There's that famous clip, isn't there, with the man and the woman, and she proper does him over. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. And look, a lot of the time with sales stuff, people think about saying stuff like, getting people to make decisions and stuff like that. And it's not about trying to use subterfuge to get people to make the wrong decision, but it is often about understanding human psychology so that you can help them to make a decision. And that's the key. It's that thing. It's kind of like Star Wars at times where, like, you get the Force and you kind of had to make the decision to use it for good or to use it for the evil. And I think everybody who is in sales and works hard at it essentially is a Jedi, and they do get that choice. You can join the dark side and make some bad decisions and make some short-term cash, or you can follow Luke Skywalker. You can join, the rebellion, and you can make sure that you help people make decisions, which is much more long-term. So I love this post. I love reading about John Forbes Nash, and thanks for sharing, Chris. What about you, Susie?
I feel a little bit overwhelmed with all of that theory, and it felt very scientific and very clever. One thing I'm going to jump on is that sunk cost theory. So I see this happening in relationships. I have some people very close to me who stay far too long in a bad relationship because they've invested so much time and effort into it. It seems a shame to break up. So I definitely think that this is something that happens, and in sales, and just to get the topic back to sales for a second. This happens a lot when decisions are being made. So Rain Group did some research into opportunities. So of all the opportunities that an account manager has in their pipeline, across all the companies, what percentage actually gets won and what gets lost. And what they found was, and I may have the numbers slightly wrong, but if they're wrong, they're off by 1 or 2% only. So I think it was 47% of opportunities were won. So if an opportunity is in a pipeline, on average, 47% of the time, it gets won by the company that put it in their pipeline. 28% of the time, it gets lost to the competition. So the other people win it. Yeah. which means that there's 25% of the time that actually a very interesting thing happens. It gets lost to no decision at all. So 25% of the time when an opportunity has been created, and hopefully an opportunity is created because there is a potential for a sale there, we can have a conversation about hopium and all that another time, then 25% of the time, the customer or the buyer decides, I'm just going to stick with what I've got already. They decide to neither go for competitor A or competitor B. They choose to stick with what they've got because it's too much effort to make the change, or they can cope with the pain or the frustration. And I think it's our job as salespeople to really help our customers, especially in kind of more complex B2B sales, to really try and help them understand what is the impact of them doing nothing? What is the impact of them choosing to stick with what they're working with already? Is it a loss of time? Is it an increase in stress? Is it dissatisfied employees? I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And I think sometimes in sales, we don't do enough of a job or a good enough job of really uncovering not only the pain, but what that pain means to them and that company. And so that's the piece that I'm going to jump on from this very highbrow post that you shared with us from Instagram, Chris.
I love that, because this is the other thing as well, which I always think about in this instance is, obviously you've got to dig deep and you've got to find the pain and stuff like that, but you've got to make it easy for people to make that decision. A lot of the time that includes making them not feel like a dick. Do you know what I mean? Like making it safe that, look, we know we've done this thing, but it's okay because if we move, then we can really improve. I feel like there might be
there's a rhyme there.
If we move, we can improve. I'm going to get that tattooed on my forehead this afternoon. And Chris, you've had nothing to do this week, so you've been hanging out on Instagram all week, it seems, and you found another post from there.
Yeah, it's not as long as the last one, but it is from, and I think we're all in agreement, an absolute dude, Daniel Pink. We've all read his books. We love his stuff. He makes this kind of behavioral psychology stuff just really understandable. So I'm not hogging the limelight for the whole podcast. I'll go through this one quickly. So Daniel put on Instagram a few slides. Want people to take action. You don't need to convince them. You just need to change 2 letters. Now, to any salesperson, that's like, oh, sounds like something easy to get a result. Love that. Harvard research, there's some authority principle to make you think that this is great, proves this tiny shift can make people 33% more likely to follow through. I don't think he means shit themselves. I think he means like take a next step. If you can move on for Leon, you've got the screen. If you could click on for us. Sorry, pal. So in a study, Stanford researchers asked students to help clean up a classroom. Group 1 were asked, can you help clean up? Group 2 were asked, can you be a helper and clean up? The second group was 33% more likely to help just by adding ER to the word help. Another study tested with voting behaviour in the UK. At the moment, they've just lowered the voting age to 16, haven't they? It's real top agenda at the moment. What a topical podcast we are. Group 1 was told to go vote. Group 2 was asked to be a voter. That 1-letter shift, they added an R, led to a 15% increase in voter turnout. Why? Because we want to act in accordance to what the last sentence was on the slide before, act in ways that confirm our identity. So, Susie, you've done all your NLP stuff as well. We know this about attack behavior, not identity, etc. The psychology behind it, we all want to see ourselves as good, smart, and capable. When an action is framed as an identity, we're more likely to do it because now it's who we are, not just something that we do. Leon McCowan, could you be a clicker? And move on. Thank you. This works in reverse too. Cheating is bad, but being a cheater, straight back to your point before, Susie, talking about dating and bad relationships, that's much worse. Littering is bad, but being a litterbug, no one wants that. Using nouns makes the action feel like a core part of who we are, for better or for worse. How to use this today? Want to build a habit? Say, I'm a reader instead of I read. Want to influence a team? Say, let's be problem solvers instead of let's solve this problem. Want to stop a bad habit? Frame the behavior as an identity you don't want, e.g., I'm not a procrastinator. So I think this is great from Daniel, and we do this in coaching, don't we, with people, is 1, don't attack somebody's identity. You're a whatever, no, you're not. How you acted in that call was less than what we would expect from you, because you can change how you act. It's very hard to change your behavior. You're rude. You're a rude person. Oh, well, then people get into a situation, they don't know how to act. They fall back on what their identity is. Oh, hang on, I'm a rude person, so that is how I will act in this situation. If we coach our sales teams, who are maybe more challenging members, and we separate identity from behavior, we get a massively different outcome from this. So I absolutely love this. If you've not read Daniel's books, I've got most of them on the bookshelf behind me. Get onto Amazon today, go for Daniel Pink, look for his books on there. Get yourself a cup of tea this weekend, smash a load of books in it. It's really interesting stuff. Susie, I saw you nodding along to a lot of this. I think we've discussed Daniel together before, haven't we?
We've definitely talked about Daniel Pink, and I love his book Drive. You know, what really motivates us. It's well worth a read. So this took me back to my tennis playing, which I still do because I am a tennis player.
No.
And and that's what I remember reading is that the identity, if you're going onto a tennis court and about to play a match, if you say I'm a tennis player rather than I like to play tennis, the difference is you're identifying with being that person on the court. Now, I didn't say whether I'm a good or a bad tennis player in that, right? But I am a tennis player, right? And this is something that can really help with taking ownership, to be accountable for some of these things. And I love this theory. I think I need to have a little bit more of a think about how to like apply it in a sales world and everything. But I think it's a great shout here about identifying with this. So you saying rather than saying I'm in sales, we should be saying I'm a salesperson.
I'm a sales professional. I'm an expert cold caller. I'm a biff. Like whatever it is. How many people have a downer in sales? So, you hit a dip and then in the morning they get up and they go, oh God, I'm a loser. Well, that's just a direct command about your identity, isn't it? Yeah. I'm just having a challenging month, but I'm a sales professional. I can get out of that dip. Really changes your mindset, changing your ID. Leo?
Yeah, I love this. Look, the thing I like most about this, obviously, like Daniel Pink, I did think when you said, I've got all his books on behind me, I thought you were going to say, so drop me a line and I'll send you a copy, but you didn't. You said, go and buy one because you're a miser. What I loved about this is it's pretty simple. Like this thing is pretty simple. Like it is just a little change and a little tweak. When people, when I speak to people like, oh, I need to do some stuff, and I'm like, tell me what you do, and I'm like, just give this a little nudge and just change this up a little bit and drop that down a little bit. And most of the time, improving what you do is marginal gain stuff. It's not massive things. You know what I mean? It's not like, right, throw that script in the bin and let's rewrite it. It's not like, let's have a look at your process and completely change it. It's right, let's just have a little look at this. Let's have a little look at that. And I love the idea behind this. My favorite Daniel Pink book, by the way, is To Sell is Human. I've probably read that about 25, 30 times, I would say.
Just to pull you up then, you just said I'm a miser. You put the ER on, you've attacked my identity. You should have said sometimes, Chris, how you behave is less than generous and maybe mildly tight-fisted. And I'd go, I'm okay with that because I could change that. I'm not a miser for not giving my books away to listeners.
I wanted it to be a barb. I didn't want it to be gentle. Next post is from Laura Clark. I think this was me, but I'm going to run with it anyway, even if it wasn't. It says today's managers meeting is costing the business £3,498. That's the room, the food, the travel, everyone's salary for the day. This is a huge investment into the future of the business and a vital day. However, if you know how much every meeting costs your business, would they all still go ahead? I bet they wouldn't. We're starting to measure the cost of every meeting. Why? Because I hate meeting for meeting's sake. And if you knew that a meeting to discuss a fruit bowl is costing you 150 quid for the hour, but the fruit bowl costs you 20 quid, don't meet about it, just do it. It's a refreshing approach to validate meetings and allows people to permission to remove themselves and their cost. There is no value to them being there, love or hate the idea. And I love this idea. I want to, if I'm speaking to someone and having a chat about what they're doing, I'll go, right, let's have a little butchers at your diary. And then you look at the diary and they're back to back, which is horrific. because they've got no thinking time and hardly any doing time because there's loads of meetings. I always feel sorry for Frankie when I have a look at her diary. She just goes from meeting to meeting to meeting. It breaks my heart that she does something like that for 8 hours in a day. But one of the things that I'll always have a look at when I'm speaking to someone is like, have a look at what you're in and what meetings you're going to. I think we discussed recently, or you talked about it at the Sales Dojo the other day, Chris. I can't remember which one it was, just about that response, like what's going to happen in the meeting, what kind of input do you want from me? And I think the one thing I want a message for any of our listeners on this is have a look at your diary for the next 3 weeks and see what you can chuck in the bin. Because so many times people say they're not getting results, and then when you look, it's because they're not spending much time actually selling. They fill it, they've got an hour and a half in the afternoon for filling the CRM in. They've got an hour and a half in the morning in sales meetings. They've got 2 hours in the afternoon in a technical thing, and they're not doing enough of the actual making phone calls. CRMs are fabulous things for helping remind you to do stuff, but if they become a 6 or 7 hour task of your week, then maybe you're doing that wrong. What was it, Chris, you were talking about? Was it a talk or was it on the podcast? I can't remember.
I remember. I've been Googling this because it fascinates me. There's a lot of apps out there, Meeting King. I think there's a Chrome extension for this. If you go to book a meeting, say you're in a big organization and you invite 7 people to a meeting, it will immediately calculate based on their salary and roles exactly how much that meeting costs the company. So if you say you're being invited to a meeting 11 a.m. till 12 a.m., the cost of the company of this meeting is $2,958. That reminds people to go, do I really need to be there? What's the agenda? Could this be an email? Could it be half an hour? Because there is quite a meeting culture in a lot of organizations, isn't it? Let's just invite everybody to a meeting. And quite often, if they're doing a task they don't really want to do, oh yeah, I'll go to that meeting. There might be biscuits. And before you know it, an organization's lost £10,000 that week on meetings that could have been an email or just not a meeting in the first place. So I think it's something really worth looking at is whether you're on 10 grand a year or £1 million a year, we all have one currency, time. And I know it's not the Beyonce thing, but time's your most precious commodity. Like it's the most priceless thing that you have because it is finite. Put a value on it. Do you need to be there? Is it worthwhile being there? And I think this comes from good leadership, allowing people, as you said, Liam, to push back. Brilliant. Really appreciate you inviting me to this. Could you just let me know exactly what input would you like from me in this meeting and what's the agenda? And that quite often makes people go, oh, yeah, you probably don't need to be there. Or just come in for this bit. So, yeah, I love that. Susie, we do a lot of meetings, don't we?
We do a lot of meetings. We were talking about this yesterday. Before we talk about meeting etiquette,
I feel like you two are cheating on me when you say you do a lot of meetings. I don't get invited to any of these.
We only talk about you in the meetings as well. That's all we do in the meetings, Liam.
Yeah, it's a really good use of our time. I was just thinking when you were talking about these apps that can calculate how much based on people's salaries and the time of the meeting, like I was just thinking, well, hang on a second. So if I played around with it and I like took off this person and added this person, I could figure out how much everybody in my company earns using this app, right?
Yeah.
There we go. Right, there we go. So that's a way to waste even more time in our very, very busy day.
I love how your mind works there. That was brilliant.
But this is a topic that came up recently. I did a lot of first-line manager training for a company, a Swedish company, but global team. And we were talking about management of meetings and of all the stuff that we talked about across those the time that we spent together, this really resonated with them because they felt owned by their diaries. They felt like their diaries were running their lives and that they didn't have enough time to, for example, spend in the field with their team members, which Chris, you and I would probably say is one of the most important things you can do with your time, or one of the most effective things you can do with your time is spend time with your team, helping to coach them. Yeah. And so we talked about this, like, and just like you said, there was like this kind of like 3-step rule. So the first thing was, if there's no agenda attached to the meeting, you can, some people choose to just decline the meeting. Yeah. There's no agenda. Others choose to be slightly polite and say, there's no agenda attached. Can you please send the agenda and tell me what my role would be? Right. So just like you said there, Chris. Then the second step is, if it still feels like it's a meeting that's worth going to then push back again and say, could it be recorded? Do you need me there to be there live? Yeah. Or, could I send somebody else in my place? Sometimes there's an opportunity to send somebody more junior or from a different department who can speak for both of you, or you see it as a development opportunity for somebody who wants to get into a management role, for example. Then you can ask, can I send somebody else? And if the answer still is no, we really need you, you then push back and say, I can see this meeting scheduled for an hour. Could we cover this in 15 minutes? And you push back on the amount of time that you need for that particular meeting. So there are 3 techniques to use for pushing back. And I've already had feedback from that particular team, because we finished the training in the summer, and then we're meeting again in September. And some of them are really enjoying pushing back on the meetings now. They're actually feeling very satisfied in doing it. So it's working for some of them.
I thought you were going to say, and I've had feedback, they've all been fired.
Hope not.
Jeff Bezos writes about this a lot, doesn't he? He said his meetings, what's his rule? No more people than can be fed by 1 pizza, or is it 2 pizzas in a meeting?
Oh, okay. I thought Amazon did you come into the meeting and you get given time to read the briefing in the meeting before you meet about it, so that basically everybody comes to the meeting at the same point, because there's nothing more frustrating than someone rocking up to a meeting who hasn't prepared for it. And it could have been a 15-minute meeting, but because you've got to bring the people up to speed, it ends up taking an hour and a half. So I think that's the Amazon, but I've heard the pizza one as well. Maybe that's him too.
2 pizza team. Jeff Bezos is called the 2 team rule.
Well, which, to be fair, that would just be me and you, Leon. Yeah. Like that's not a lot of pizza. I found the simplest way to make sure everything got done and everyone got on with the day in a meeting, make them all stand-up meetings. Get a big high table and you just have to stand up. Nobody wants to stand up for more than 15 minutes in a meeting. It's amazing how much you get done in a stand-up meeting.
Yeah, someone shared that with me once. We used to have a meeting at the end of a networking thing that we did, and it'd end up lasting for an hour. And someone said, just make it a stand-up meeting. And we did it, and it was 10, 15 minutes. And it was the same result. It was brilliant. So yeah, some great tips there for improving your use of time. Susie, you've got one from you, and that was from Tom Boston.
It is, and it's going to be thinking about use of time. We only have 3 more minutes left of this podcast because some of us have a hard stop. So I'm just going to read this out, and I think we'll leave it there if that's okay. So Tom Boston shared a post from my sales coach with just the word guilty ahead of it. So this is it. Sales maths. 0% chance of closing equals it still might close. 20% chance of closing equals it will probably still close. 50% chance of closing equals it will definitely close. 70% chance of closing equals it's already closed. Enough said, I think. Are we being realistic about our sales closing probabilities?
Yeah, I think we can all agree that as salespeople and sellers, we have been fighting our hopium addiction for many years. But every now and again, it comes back, grabs a hold of us, and we still think we're going to get that one that's still not going to go.
I've already spent my commission on a house, and I've not earned it yet.
I'm not even lying yet. I got a notification of a contract signed for a big deal just before. I've already opened up Flight Scanner, and I'm booking flights to Benidorm. It's happening. It's happening. I haven't even been paid the money yet. I've just got the contract. I've got to deliver and everything, but I'm just putting the money through. Well, look, we've had a good chat there. We went through some highbrow stuff early on. We visited Princeton with John Forbes Nash. We did Daniel Pink, and he was talking about Harvard and Stanford. We then talked about nouns versus verbs, and how we need to try and take action, being better with your time and how to protect it, which will help you. And then finally, we did a dash of hopium at the end. If you want to find out some more about Susie, check it out on LinkedIn or trythesmallstuff.de. Chris is also on LinkedIn, or you can find him at sixdoor.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. You probably want to avoid that, though. I only moan, but you can find out some more about the Sales Dojo at www.thesalesdojo.com.